It's an old maxim: buy when others are fearful, sell when others are greedy. Confessions with a fund manager. My guest today is ANAND RADHAKRISHNAN, CIO, Franklin Templeton Equities.
I've known ANAND RADHAKRISHNAN for the last 15 years, and the key to his investment success are quite simple: hard work and cold logic. In the investment world, there is always an interplay between emotions and logic, and in the case of ANAND, logic always has the upper hand. He follows such a rigorous process, investment process, that he consistently outperforms his benchmark year after year.
Anand, thank you so much for joining us on the Wizards of the Wall Street. Anand, you've been now 20 years in the market. What were your earlier influence in the stock market?
It was after I did my graduation and post-graduation in management. It was quite by accident I took up a career in investment management. I joined SBI Funds Management Limited out of campus and started...
That's IIM Ahmedabad, right?
Yes, IIM Ahmedabad, right. And I started a career in equity research.
That time management consulting or FMCG were the favored career jobs.
Predominantly people used to go for big consulting firms, and IT was not a big thing, and Lever and P&Gs were very sought after. Investment banking, within the merchant banking, was preferred than investment management. So SBI and UTA were the only lone recruiters in the campus at that time, and people did not think of it as a big career at that point of time. So only two of us joined from IMA, out of which I continued to pursue the career. The other person actually eventually moved on to IT.
Really? What piqued your interest?
I think once I joined the company, and the first couple of years were pretty heady in terms of the experience. The markets were at all-time high, and a lot of things were happening in the economy. I mean, we had Dr. Manmohan Singh as the finance minister.
Liberalization had just started.
And India was going through some fantastic growth opportunities. A lot of sectors were opening up, and we got to meet a lot of companies. I mean, SBI is one place where there was a lot of freedom.
Opens a lot of doors also.
Yes. And it was a second largest firm in terms of the AUM at that time. And so companies always used to give us appointments whenever we want to meet them. So within like 2.5 years, I could kind of meet like 100+ companies, visit their factories, and learn different industries. And I have been to automobile companies, textile companies, some of the consumer staples. So it kind of the spectrum of opportunities, the breadth of it, and the exposure I got was very interesting.
But the Sensex was stagnant during that time. I mean, it peaked in 92.
It was a very challenging phase. In fact, internally, since we are in research, we are supposed to kind of predict where the Sensex would be in a year's time or 2 years' time, much like what it is happening now. And we were all very young and inexperienced, and we did this thing of projecting the 30 companies' earnings and attaching a multiple. And based on that, Sensex was, when we did that, Sensex was at 4,200. And we said that in a year's time it will be something like 5,100, and we thought we were being very conservative.
Nice 20% compounded growth rate.
And we never saw that number for the next 6 years.
Correct, until 2000 actually.
2000. So it was a kind of a rude shock for us, because we thought we are very good in projecting things, and we could kind of foresee what is going to happen and all. But economy went totally the other way. For 6 years, the Sensex earnings were growing at 1% kind of CAGR, and then the IT boom happened, which kind of made the pain more bearable. But actually, if you had participated in the boom, it was a bit of a pleasure. But if you hadn't, the pain continued.
When did you get into active fund management, though? From research, when did you move into fund management?
In 97, when I switched jobs and I joined Sundaram, I started managing a small fund. It was called Sundaram Growth Fund. We also had a tax fund. These were the two funds which I started managing actively.
Growth fund, that's the key to your investing style, growth?
Yes.
Give me an example.
Growth can be looked at in multiple manner. For example, it can be an existing industry or a space in which a new player is coming with either an innovative product or services or a disruptive approach to doing that business.
Would Uber qualify as that?
Uber is definitely a good example of that. You know, taxis have been in existence for a very long period of time, and then someone comes and takes market share. So that is one way of doing it. And those days, outsourcing was a very big thing. Not IT outsourcing alone. Anything that is not very core to the companies were getting outsourced. So the effort was always to find what's the next growth idea, what's the next opportunities that so it can be either an existing big opportunity in which you are a new player, or a new opportunity itself in which one is an early entrant. For example, in India, when some of the private banks got into banking space was very well established, but these companies came with better products and better services. And for example, the introduction of technology into banking happened aggressively through private banks.
Of course.
And because of that, they gained dramatic market share. And we saw that very early, and some of our large investments in the private bank space.
Like IndusInd Bank.
Whether it is IndusInd Bank, Kotak Bank, HDFC Bank, all these things happened with the view that it's the established space, but these companies are doing innovative things. And products and services, and gaining market share.
So you learn growth. I mean, that's your DNA, that you want to find growth almost at all costs.
Most of the time, predominantly, we would like to go after growth. Occasionally, we don't mind playing a contrarian bet, but nothing like identifying, because when people come to invest in India, whether Indians investing in India or overseas investors in India, they don't come to buy value stocks out here, because India is a growing economy. So we think that growth is, because there is economic growth being pretty good, and companies overlay their business on top of this economic growth. By and large, if you are invested in good compounding growth ideas, you are fine, as long as the companies run well, they don't make dramatic capital allocation mistakes, and they reinvest in the business for growth. I think a large part of the investment problem is solved.
Clearly, and promoters have sky-high ambitions. I mean, they want to bet the balance sheets on, especially if it's borrowed money, on a number of projects. So how do you distinguish the wheat from the chaff?
It's tough. We have made our share of mistakes. It is good to be very early in the game, because in 90s we were allowed to make mistakes. So we do know that we did realize it's more like baptism by fire.
Learning on the job.
Learning on the job. But unfortunately, today people do not have that luxury. People cannot afford to make one mistake in the current study.
Underperform, you lose your job.
Yes, the risks are pretty high. On those days, the risks were not so high, and that kind of helped us to learn out of our mistakes. And there were enough, of course, examples were also abound. I mean, over-ambitious promoters, excessive leverage, betting too much with equity, or betting too much with debt. So all kinds of mistakes, or unrelated diversifications, doing too many things at the same time.
Right.
So all kinds of mistakes happen.
And you have to guard yourself